Hello and welcome to a live Kerfefe break on Deprogrammed. I'm your host, Keri Smith. Before I bring in my guest today on this wonderful Friday, I have a couple of announcements. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget. First, if you're in the Round Rock, Texas area, we're doing another Women Leaving the Left event. This is on Friday, September 30th, and the link is in the chat if you want to get tickets. Let's see. Wait, actually, I think I can share this. We have a great lineup for this one. Can I do that? There we go. Can you guys see that? Maybe not. Oh, there it is. Okay. So for this one, it's Megan Murphy from Feminists for Free Speech, Michelle Evans, who's running in the Round Rock area. The election is coming up in November. I got to interview her for Deprogrammed. She is a badass based mama. That's how I would describe her. She's going to be one of the speakers. I'm going to be there. And then also this time we're joined by Antonia Okafor Cover, and Isabella Malbin is the moderator again. So anyway, if you're in the area, please come out. It's open to everyone. I know it says women leaving the left, but it's also, we have men who come. Mystery Chris came to the last one. So I hope you'll be there. The other announcement is, speaking of, oh wait, everyone's here. Hold on. How did I do that?
Boo. When you share the thing, it does that on StreamYard, I think. So.
Okay.
What up, guys? How you doing? How's it going? Just hanging.
Sorry, didn't mean to scare y'all.
Hey, welcome, everybody. I'll tell you the announcements later. Please welcome Mark Ousley from the Unwokeable channel, which you can find here on YouTube, and Jason Littlefield, who are both returning guests to Deprogram. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Doing
good. Fantastic.
Yeah, making a timely entrance, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like Kramer barging in.
It's just so surprising. I still learn
Chris Farley entering a room.
Yeah, every day I learn something new about StreamYard, YouTube. Somebody in our show Wednesday night, me and Mr. Chris, somebody was like, Keri, you should get an ad blocker. An ad blocker. I was like, what? What is that? So anyway, welcome. Can you guys just, before we get started, so I don't forget, can you each just tell us a little bit about yourself for anyone who may be new to the channel and hasn't seen you before, and also where they can find you online?
Jason.
Okay. I was like, Mark.
See, we're polite, but
I'm Jason Littlefield. My Twitter handle is Jason the THEE human, and I am a co-founder of Free Black Thought. I am the executive director of Empowered Pathways, and I am now also the co-host of a podcast called Reformation Radio.
Ooh.
And I participate in all three of those projects with my thought partner, Keri Smith. So we are actively working on helping society decouple from woke ideology through school trainings, through corporate trainings, and that's probably about it.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you guys were doing a podcast now. What's it called? Reformation Radio?
Reformation Radio.
Reformation Radio.
Yes.
Very cool. How do you get a thought partner?
Man, it was...
and especially one like Keri Smith, who I want to be when I grow up. So,
all right. Well, I have to say this now. Damn it! I've been having to say this too many times. But you asked the question, and the answer is the second time that I met with Eric and visited with Eric, I said, dude, I feel like I've been looking for you for a long time, because I had spent the past few years trying to talk to people about this ideology and the damage that it was doing, and while working on emotional intelligence stuff, because I noticed this was negatively impacting our social emotional well-being, while at the same time he was doing the same type of work and experiencing the same type of issues that I was. So honestly, it's just one of those serendipitous type
Organic.
situations. And now we've got three different projects in which we can address society in 3 unique different ways.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for being here today, and I'll check out Reformation Radio. I had not heard of it. We've got your
Keri,
links,
and Keri you were I also, just since I'm here, you were the first person that voiced me a little bit more than a year ago, that I guess platformed me, that had me.
I platformed someone? Yes.
Yes. Like you were somebody that saw what I was doing, and I was like, now this guy's onto something. So
You are onto something. I'm
we
very glad that you live in my state of Texas.
Yes.
Because I think we need someone like you doing the work that you're doing here. And yeah, I think I was really lucky to get to meet you. So
likewise.
It's awesome. Okay. Mark, tell people a little bit about yourself and where they can find you.
Real quick, because we just to tag on, this is Dr. Eric Smith's book. Okay, this is a criticism of anti-racism rhetoric and composition. I bought this as soon as it came out, and it is amazing. As you can see, I'm using it extensively. He really digs into the rhetoric of anti-racism and what's not, what's facetious about it, what isn't honest about it. So he's also been on my channel. So my channel, Dr. Eric Smith and Jason have both been on my channel. Unwelcome
and me.
Yes, and you. Yes, everyone's been on my channel. Yay. Yeah, and here's the funny part about that is I'm officially suspended right now from YouTube. Yeah. So that's a whole nother story, because it has to go with Courage as a Habit and the things that we got started putting out about ASCA, the American School Counselors Association. Basically, YouTube, Google, and Amazon all deplatformed us in different ways, all within hours of each other after we did a show together about ASCA. And so they claimed first that I was posting things from North Korea. Yeah, it's craziness. And so
wait a minute. So are you on is it permanently
Oklahoma?
Suspended?
No, I'm on a week suspension.
A week suspension on YouTube.
Yeah, no. What they did is they took down a video that I had up that was literally a 2-minute clip from another YouTube video that they haven't taken down, saying I did medical misinformation, and that's why they suspended me. Okay. And then they came back and said that I was demonetized, I guess, during that period, but they said it was because I was posting videos from North Korea. Literally, like I put it up on. No. Okay. I do everything. I haven't left Norman, Oklahoma in months, and when I do, it's not that far. I promise you. Hey, Kim Jong.
Prove there's not people eating dirt behind you.
Well, okay. There you go. Yeah. So, but you can still like and subscribe to that channel. I'm on Twitter at ACS Against CRT. And I think my link tree's up. You can find me there. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple iTunes for my podcast. I've had these two wonderful people there. I've had James Lindsay. I've had Eric Smith. I've had lots of great people. So what I do is what I'm getting into now is exposing a lot of the misinformation, the woke activism in local media, because that is so present right now, and how that affects education specifically. And I think we're going to get into a little bit of that kind of thing in a situation that happened here in my hometown. But that's me. And go follow my stuff.
Cool. And everybody give it up for Pirate Tomsky, our mod in the chat today. Thank you, Pirate. He's posted all of your links in the chat so people can go check you out, find your channels.
Thank you.
First of all, the 2 announcements, just so I don't forget before I surprise myself with you on screen. One, we are moving all of the pop culture episodes to its own channel. So we have a new pop culture channel. If you guys wouldn't mind subscribing, it's part of the new Inflation Reduction Act that we're separating. That's a joke. Nobody laughed. Whatever.
I got you. No,
Anyway.
I was zoning. Sorry, because I
Yeah.
didn't say announcements. But that was funny, legitimately.
Thanks. Pirate, I stole that joke from Matt Deckard. Pirate has linked it in the chat. We are going to be, Mystery Chris and I, our Wednesday night live shows are going to be on the new Pop Culture channel from now on. And we're also going to be creating some new kinds of entertainment and comedy content on that channel. So please go and check it out. It's free to subscribe here on YouTube. Thank you. And the third and final thing is, I'm so excited about this book. Here, let me grab it. Hold on one second.
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Dun, dun, dun.
I figured we should fill the dead air. I was trying to fill the dead air for you.
Oh, thanks. We are reading Political Ponerology for Deprogram Book Club. Currently, we're going to be discussing it in a couple of weeks, probably. We'll be announcing the date. We have a kind of a tentative date, but we'll let you know when. But anyway, in the meantime, go get Political Ponerology. I cannot recommend this book enough. I had a lot of hours in the airport on the way to and from Europe. I had a really delayed flight, the kind where you sit on the tarmac for hours, but it was great because I got to read more of this. I haven't been this excited about a book in a long time. So if you're going to be a part of it this month, or if you're just going to read the book on your own, I would recommend getting the copy with the new version that has a foreword by Michael Rechtenwald. It has a lot of new stuff at the beginning. Michael Rechtenwald is brilliant. And I just, I think you guys would like this version the best. So, it's not on Audible. I don't think it's on Audible, but I think there's a version on YouTube. People have told me there's a version on YouTube if you want to listen to it instead. Anyway, that's it. Political Ponerology. Hope you'll join us. And let's get started, guys. I will tell the audience, because I already told you guys, I'm a little jet lagged still, and it affects me more in the morning than it does at night. So my mouth is not keeping up with my brain. So at some point, if I'm not able to get words out, you guys just take the reins.
Okay.
And that happens to me a lot. So
I live that way. We're going. So this is gonna be
fine.
Interesting show. So
Yeah.
I do that a lot. So
well, I want to start with this. There's lots of things in the news every week. We live in that kind of world where they're constantly bombarding us with news stories, and it's not even like a 24-hour news cycle anymore. It's like several news cycles in a day. But one of the ones that grabbed my attention that I just am fascinated by, and I keep reading all the updates on, and there's been a lot of controversy over, are the governors of Florida and Texas, my state and Jason's, Abbott and DeSantis. They have started sending immigrants or migrants who've crossed the border asking for asylum. They've started sending them by bus and plane to sanctuary destinations. These are cities or locations that have declared themselves as sanctuary destinations. So let me just share one news article with you guys if you guys haven't heard about this yet, although I'm sure people who watch this show have. Here's one. Let's see. This is from Texas. And I'm reading, this is the statement from the government of Texas. It's from our website. Governor Abbott, this is the headline. Governor Abbott announces migrant bus arrivals at border czar Harris's residence in Washington, D.C. First of all, look at what he calls the vice president, border czar. He's kind of like, it's sort of Trump.
Well, is that a title that she has? Is she over?
She's in charge of. She was put in charge of the border crisis by the Biden administration, and I will say this: Obama popularized the word czar for these kinds of positions in his first term as president. So
I do remember that. So
yes, it's not tongue in cheek.
Complete.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little tongue in cheek, but there's precedent.
There's some truth tied to it.
Yeah.
So from the article, this is from September 15th, from yesterday. Governor Greg Abbott today announced the arrival of 2 buses of migrants from Texas outside of Vice President Kamala Harris's residence in the United States Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C. early this morning. The buses dropped off over 100 migrants from the countries of Colombia, Cuba, Guyana, Nicaragua, Panama, and Venezuela. Quote, the Biden-Harris administration continues ignoring and denying the historic crisis at our southern border, which has endangered and overwhelmed Texas communities for almost 2 years, said Governor Abbott. Our supposed border czar, Vice President Kamala Harris, has yet to even visit the border to see firsthand the impact of the open border policies she has helped implement, even going so far as to claim the border is secure. She did do that recently. She said that.
Yes, she did.
Texas will continue sending migrants to sanctuary cities like Washington, D.C., until President Biden and border czar Harris step up and do their jobs to secure the border. It's pretty incredible. There's video footage of these migrants getting off the buses near Kamala Harris's house. My first reaction, I'll be honest, and then I want to hear what you guys think. My first reaction was, this is based. And maybe this is what it takes to get politicians and people in blue states far away from the border to pay attention to the immigration crisis.
I would tend to agree, because here's the problem: is that lots of times you have leftist and left-leaning people that promote policies that they never have to actually suffer the consequences of, and so it's constantly, there's this constant pejorative thrown at the southern states, the border states, that they're, they are racist or they're inhuman or whatever that may be, right? Because they're refusing or they're complaining about this issue of crime or just massive amounts of people they can't take care of coming across the border. And that's thrown at them. Well, that's easy to do if you're sitting up in DC or in Martha's Vineyard, right? And so I think I agree that it's a way. First of all, they've kind of done it to themselves because they declared themselves sanctuary cities, right? Well, that means that you're throwing up the flame, so to speak. The Ellis Island Liberty flame. Come, give me your tired, your poor. Okay, let's send them to you, and then see what you do with them and how you deal with them. Not to mention that in most cases, I believe the places they're sending them to, like Martha's Vineyard, are way more economically they're way more economically able to take care of these people. You're talking about very affluent places, right? And so if you've got people there willing and voting for these kinds of things, they should be willing to put their money where their mouth is, so to speak.
There's one guy there that has a 7-bedroom, 8-bathroom, 20-acre estate.
Where's this? Martha's Vineyard?
At Martha's Vineyard.
Who is that?
What's that guy's name?
Oh, Obama.
Yes. Barack. Yes, it's Barack.
What do I win?
Yes.
You win everything, Keri. You win everything.
So, hasn't they taken them in and set up?
Yeah, why wouldn't he bring them on? Well, I'm sure he would blame the Secret Service for that they won't let him do that.
Well, for anyone who's wondering why we're talking about Martha's Vineyard, that's because at the same time that Abbott was sending busloads of migrants to D.C. outside of Kamala Harris's house, DeSantis from Florida sent 2 planes of migrants to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. And so this is a headline from CNN. DeSantis claims credit for sending 2 planes carrying migrants to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. And then this is kind of interesting in this article. I'll just read some of this one. It's the latest in a series of moves. This is CNN. It's the latest in a series of moves by Republican governors to transport migrants to northern liberal enclaves to protest what they say are inadequate federal efforts on southern border security. Located off the coast of Massachusetts and long known as a posh summer destination for wealthy vacationers, Martha's Vineyard provided an unusual and unexpected place for the migrants to be sent. Quote, "We are not a sanctuary state." This is DeSantis talking. "We are not a sanctuary state, and it's better to be able to go to a sanctuary jurisdiction. And yes, we will help facilitate that transport for you to be able to go to greener pastures. Every community in America should be sharing in the burdens. It should not all fall on a handful of red states." I think that's very reasonable what he's saying. But then if you scroll down, there are people who are complaining about it. They're saying, quote, "There was no advance notice to anyone in Martha's Vineyard or Massachusetts that these migrants were arriving." in addition to response efforts by locals on the island, the Massachusetts Energy Management Agency is expected to be on the ground to coordinate efforts. They ended up declaring it a humanitarian emergency in Martha's Vineyard. It was 50 people.
Yeah.
50. And a humanitarian crisis.
Can I say something
Yeah.
about that? Guess what? When you have people crossing the border, you never know when they're coming either. It's not like they announce themselves either. So
Exactly.
what they did is they really just flipped them and put them in their place of the red states and those cities that have to deal with this. And at least they had more notice than those border towns and border states have most of the time, because at least the bus came and they were getting off the bus. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that there were press there. So if I know DeSantis and I know Abbott, which they're pretty savvy, I'm sure that they'd sent someone along the way. So that's more of an announcement than these other places usually have. So
plus the numbers are much smaller than I was looking at the numbers. It's about Ted Cruz is citing 4.2 million illegal immigrants in the state of Texas. The numbers per day, if somebody can pull that up for me, I had it, but I can't find it. I'll look for it. But the numbers per day they're a lot more than 50.
Yeah.
There. And so I guess I wanted to talk about, what do you guys think about this and the claims I'm seeing from some on the left? I've got a foot in two different online worlds, and I follow a lot of people who are in the woke left because I want to see what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
One of those people was Charlotte Clymer, who blocked me yesterday for commenting on something that he posted. But it was basically what they're all saying is that it's anti-Christian for Texas and Florida to send some of these migrants to places that have said they will welcome them, sanctuary destinations, that it's unchristian, and that it is human trafficking. They're really, Keith Olbermann and others are really trying to make a case for human trafficking, that it's illegal what they're doing and that the governors should be arrested. And they're saying that it's that they oppose it because it's a stunt. They're saying that the third thing they're saying is that this is people being exploited and used. These migrants are being used for a political stunt. So what do you guys have to say to those arguments?
First of all, the Biden administration has been taking people in planes from the border since the day they got into the office. They've been transplanting, especially the kids when that first wave hit. They've been taking. So first of all, what's the difference? If Biden can, take planes full of people to different parts of the country, and this is well documented, it's in the news, right? What's the difference in terms of being human trafficking? Second of all, send me to Martha's Vineyard. I'd rather be in Martha's Vineyard than Brownsville, Texas. You know what I mean? and the ones the migrants that were sent into New York, they're getting put up in hotels in Times Square. Send me. You know what I mean? It's like it seems that they're getting better treatment because of what is going on. And the other thing I heard was that this is kidnapping, or that it's that they're trying to accuse them of kidnapping or human trafficking. Again, it's okay for the left to do that. It's okay for the Biden administration to do that under the cover of night. At least DeSantis owned it. Mm-hmm. At least Abbott owned it. Biden, I don't even know if he's still admitted that they're taking people from the border and putting them into other places. So that's my first thought. It's a two. You got two rule books here, obviously.
Jason,
I think I'll start with that core point of this is exploiting people for political cause. I agree to that. And then this situation could also realistically further confuse, potentially harm, potentially make things better for real life people. So there are real life people in this situation, but I don't believe that it is Greg Abbott and Rick DeSantis that are exploiting these people for political cause.
Who's exploiting them?
The people that would prefer a more globalized and open society, the great resetters of the world, if you will, this is an intentional Cloward and Piven style strategy and tactic that these poor people, in a way, because they are being weaponized as new weapons in this war, just like the flood wave over the past 20 years of immigrants throughout Europe due to the great resetters, if you will, destroying their homelands with weapons of war. So it's all, it's all just part of this one big assault on everybody. I talk about there's a line that's been drawn between there's 86% versus the 14%. And now it's time for that 86% to get our shit together and get organized and get out of that left versus right, Republican, Democrat, Trump this and everything that, because every day that we're like, oh my God, can you believe they did this and they did that, the revolution marches on. So
well, and let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and Barbara Jordan could have fixed. She had a committee put together in 1992 and really had a solid and fair immigration plan. Like they called her together to assemble this, and she said, "All right, I'll do that." She's from Texas. She knows and understands, and it was a very fair and realistic platform. And they totally scrapped it. And also, living in Texas my entire life, I've developed deep friendships with so-called illegal immigrants. And I know a lot of really good people that fall under that category. So it's what we're dealing with. It's a human issue, but on the surface, we argue about it as this political thing while the ruling class continues to march on.
Yes, I think that's what Abbott and DeSantis are doing, trying to expose this. It's a bit of a troll, but trolling has its purposes.
It does.
Right? Base. It's super base.
It's super base, but it's highlighting an asymmetrical dichotomy, right? First of all, because you got to understand that this isn't a racial issue either. And that's what this often is tried to thrown as, right? Is that southern states are racist and these border states are racist, the governors are racist, and all Republicans are racist, right? But if you go back to the last elections, the last series of elections, there were overwhelmingly Latino areas of Texas that went Republican for exactly these reasons, because they understand that there are people being brought here, even by there's stories that there are people being brought here by political operatives or political movements in order to cause these problems so they can use that as a political narrative, right? And I think that's the whole mechanism of the woke left in general, is that they try to throw a preemptive narrative so you don't catch them doing what they're doing, which is the exploitation of anybody who they deem historically marginalized, right? And if they're not historically marginalized, then, well, they're people of color, so they're marginalized now. And well, they're exploited because you're bringing them here, or you're encouraging them to come here, or you're not securing the border, or all these things. You're not actually trying to fix the problem. You're trying to make a problem so you can have the solution, and always that solution is you being in power, right? And then wait a minute, it still doesn't get fixed, right? And that's what I've seen over and over again in my work in politics, even here in Oklahoma with Republicans. Because just like Jason was saying, it's not a Democrat-Republican problem. It's, hey, this is a problem. I can use this when I'm running for election, right? And I can throw up this law that, is redundant or doesn't do anything, but guess what? It will get me into office, and that's pretty much what I want. And then, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right on, Jason.
When you say that there are some forces working to bring groups of people here, are you referring to, remember when all the migrant caravans were in the news? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And people arriving here with ATM
Right on
cards,
time.
with supplies,
Mm-hmm.
all together, supposedly walking thousands and thousands of miles. And
Right at the right time.
And there are signs in the desert that are also in Chinese for some reason. I don't know why there are warning signs in
Inclusion,
Spanish
Jason.
and Chinese.
Inclusion.
You know,
I mean, you have to whatever. So.
Well, what I've heard is that there's a lot of people who are from other countries who are coming in through the Mexico border.
Of
Yes.
course, why wouldn't they? When you could come in easier, if you can fly into Mexico City, just as an example, instead of flying into St. Louis, right? And you're going to get harassed, but you can walk across the border, hit the next airport and go wherever you want. Or even just the next bus station or the next person you have to meet there. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it just becomes a matter of common sense at that point to know that that is happening. Now, to the level of which that is happening, can't be monitored because they're not really keeping those records, or at least they're not sharing them with us.
Right.
Now I want to go back to the beginning of the exploitation. Now I understand a lot of people do get up and leave to come here to try to pursue a better life.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing tens of thousands of people do it at the very same moment,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that the exploitation was when somebody told them initially something to make them give up every single thing and come along here like some sort of Pied Piper situation.
And this is not unprecedented, and people don't know a lot. If you read a lot about Eisenhower, and I study a lot of presidential history and a lot of history around that time, the CIA was well versed in this kind of thing. You know what I mean? And it's documented. And I'm not saying that the CIA is involved here, but I'm saying the tactics are known, that you can go and move groups of people at given points in order to cause instability in a political situation in order to gain a political outcome. And that is, they, just like Jason was saying, they do that in Ukraine. They can do that in Syria. You can do it in Jordan. They've done it in many different areas. But back in Eisenhower's time, they were doing it in Iran. They were doing it in Nicaragua. They did all of these things. They all a precursor to a regime change, or to highlight why you may need a regime change, right? And the first round that we saw of this was, when Biden first became president, right? And I think it kind of ended up biting him in the butt, because there were too many, because the narrative at that point was, well, look how great Biden is. He's going to bring all these people now to, they're the tired, the hungry, the poor are coming here because Biden is their benevolent grandfather who's going to give them a place and not turn them away and not be Trump at them, and that was the goal. And now I think you're seeing it for different purposes. You're seeing it for different purposes. So what you're saying, it is all about exploiting marginalized people. That's what this comes down to. Yeah. And it's always for some kind of political gain.
It's
and
that
it's well
14.
documented.
It's the 14% manipulating the poorest of the poor to get us arguing about it and mad at each other about what our misguided and misinformed opinions are, when really our opinions on it don't make a shit. It don't matter.
Yeah.
Our opinions on things don't really matter.
But we stay divided and arguing. And
yeah,
that book I mentioned, I don't know if you guys have read it yet.
While They March On.
Yeah. Political Ponerology. I love it because it's coming at totalitarianism from not so much a historical angle or academic angle, but it's coming at it from a psychological and spiritual angle. And it's basically saying the way that it's looking at totalitarianism is saying, look, at every totalitarian government we've ever seen, and every totalitarian like period in history, one way of looking at it is that it's when a society became so sick that the sociopaths gain control of everything. And I love this way of looking at it because it's talking about, disordered personality types, and how when a society starts to become inundated with them at the top, like in politics and in entertainment and academia and everything, that the whole society becomes sick because they get us to accept, they normalize things that are not normal, and they get us to fight with each other, all at the benefit of the sociopaths. And I'm like thinking about everything differently now reading this book.
It's a Marxist dialectic, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's a thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? So,
and then if you get society trying to solve society's issues without an objective truth, without recognizing merit, without grace, without recognizing the unique individuality of others, if you're trying to solve issues rejecting those things, society will crumble. Because it's like you're putting your most needed architects on the job are toddlers, because they're playing with Legos. They're like, okay, I need you to go build this skyscraper.
Yeah,
and that's what.
But they claim, like in education, for example, they claim they want outcomes based results. You know what I'm saying? But they don't do, like in war. I was reading the other day, I forgot it's a famous person, but I'm not going to remember the name, but you have to know when victory is, but you can't know when victory is if you don't have a goal. And that's the thing, is that this immigration problem, we want to fix immigration, but they've never defined how.
Yes.
Right. They never define how. And when that's the first thing I look for any kind of manipulation. If you don't have a goal, like if your goal is a good outcome, okay, great. We all want that. What is the outcome? What's the measurable outcome? And you saying outcomes is not that. You know what I mean? And that's a classic manipulation that goes down to the spiritual level, because we all want good outcomes. We all want good outcomes for these 50 people that were sent to Martha's Vineyard, right? But here's the thing. If you want to define their outcome as having a better existence where they are now than they were even in Florida or before that, well, DeSantis sending them to Martha's Vineyard, having them put in, or DC, or I think the better example is in New York, where they put them in hotels in Times Square, better than I'll ever stay at, and they're being taken care of. That's a pretty good, at least short-term outcome, right? Because they were sent to a place. But that still is not the overall outcome, and nobody defines what that is. And that's the first thing that we can look for to say, hey, you're being manipulated on a mass scale.
That's such a great point. And that's what all of social justice does. The whole ideology is like that. It doesn't have measurable end goals. That when I first started waking up to what it was and making those steps to leave it, one of the things that struck me was that all this time I've been in this belief system, and it's always about like making society more equitable for everyone, regardless of race and sex and sexuality. Okay, but how do you measure that? No one's ever talking about how do you measure that. And nobody's ever talking about like, when do you, like some of the rules that they teach people when you become indoctrinated in it is they teach you new definitions of racism and sexism and things like that. And they say it's impossible to be racist towards white people. Why? Well, because white people hold societal power, and okay, well, even if you believe that, at what point, how do we measure and determine that things are equal enough now that it is suddenly possible to be racist towards white people again? They don't have any answers for questions like that on how to measure anything.
Well, no, their answer is, and this is what I've heard in DEI trainings over and over again, and even here in Red State, Oklahoma, is this: the work is never done.
Yeah.
That they actually come out and say that there is no goal. The goal is the work. And what does it say in front of Auschwitz? Work will make you free. You know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to, is that if you're working towards something with no goal, even if, like, as a Christian, right? I'm a Christian. So my goal is to be more Christ-like. I at least know what that goal is. Even if I know it's not quite attainable, it's still a measurable thing, right? Or at least in everyday actions, it's measurable, right? But they don't define they claim not to be a religion. So you got to take it out of there and take it in a practical form, right? Because if you're the Christ analogy is a little bit off, because that's religious. That's something faith-based. They claim to say, okay, here is the equitable or the inequitable outcomes, right? But then they claim they are never reachable. That is a dialectic, right? That is a smashing two completely incompatible things together and trying to create a synthesis. And we have to start holding everyone to the fire of, okay, whether we're going to war, what is the goal to end the war, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like, it's the difference between Bush 41 and Bush 43, right? It was Bush 41 said, we're going in, we're going to liberate Kuwait, and then we're getting out, done, right? Bush 43 went in and said, we're going to go democratize stuff, okay? We're going to go, and then that lasts 20 years, and then, Biden does what he does and pulls out there. No plan. So that's the difference. So you can actually see it in a stark way. And that is what DEI, wokeness, and all this stuff is that writ small.
Yeah.
On our institutions and on our relationships, as Jason talks about so well.
Can I just pull up, just to track back to something you said earlier so people are aware? I found a news article about this. You mentioned, a lot of the outrage, they're saying, oh, this is these Republican governors sending migrants. It's human trafficking. It's awful. It's illegal. This is an article from the New York Post from October of last year, over a year ago, October 18th, 2021. Biden secretly flying underage migrants into New York in the dead of night. That's the headline. In the article, for anyone who's not aware of this, I wasn't until recently. Plane loads of underage migrants are being flown secretly into suburban New York in an effort by President Biden's administration to quietly resettle them across the region, the New York Post has learned. The charter flights originate in Texas, where the ongoing border crisis has overwhelmed local immigration officials and have been underway since at least August of 2021, according to sources familiar with the matter. Last week, the Post saw 2 planes land at the Westchester County Airport, where most of the passengers who got off appeared to be children and teens, with a small portion appearing to be men in their 20s. By the way, where are all the women? It's like a lot of men. Mm-hmm. Westchester County cops stood by as the passengers whose flights arrived at 10:49 p.m. Wednesday and 9:52 p.m. Friday got off and piled into buses. Some of them were later seen meeting up with relatives or sponsors in New Jersey or being dropped off at a residential facility on Long Island. A post-analysis of online flight tracking data suggests that around 2,000 of the underage migrants have arrived at the airport outside White Plains on 21 different flights since August 8th. Record shows some of the planes touched down. So it goes on and on. This has been happening for a while. That's the point. You guys can go read this article. Right. I'll drop it in the chat. But they're being disingenuous when they say this is like new, that the Republicans are doing this.
Right. The woke have 2 rule books.
I do it all the time. I do appreciate the hypocrisy that's been exposed. I love it when that happens. Seeing the people on Martha's Vineyard reject these people. I saw the meme of Homer Simpson where he's backing into the bushes out of it has Homer holding up in this house we believe
I posted that.
Was that you? Nice. Yeah. So I saw he stepped back and then he emerges with a no trespassing sign.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
I'll find it for you. So you
can that's perfect. That's exactly what it is. Oh my gosh. This is allow me to be a little passionate for a second. This is one of the things that really pisses me off about this. And I was getting into some arguments about this on Twitter yesterday, is because all of these like highfalutin places in like Martha's Vineyard and the Pacific Northwest and Portland, Oregon and Seattle, Washington and Los Angeles and New York City, all these places who want to talk so high and mighty and put themselves on some moral pedestal where they talk down to people in states that are affected by illegal immigration, states like Texas. And they want to say, well, we're for open borders and we are a sanctuary city, not like you guys. And we think that, you guys are racist because you want to do something about immigration. And look, Kamala Harris, they say there is no immigration problem. The border's secure. Bullshit. You haven't even been to the border. You guys have this standard because it doesn't affect you.
Mm-hmm.
And then
That's right.
when it does affect you, when these governors are like, okay, you said you were a sanctuary destination. You said that you were going to accept these migrants and shoulder part of the burden, a small, tiny part of the burden, 50 people. That's it, Martha's Vineyard, 50. We're going to take you up on your offer. We're going to send some migrants to you so you can take on part of this burden. And you guys overreact and spend a whole day writing articles about how awful we are for taking you up on it and sending you some people to help us deal with it. You guys are rich, elite people who aren't touched by this issue. And then you look down your nose at Texas when you've got poor border towns that are overwhelmed. Why should they have to shoulder all the burden?
Right.
Why are you saying it's unchristian to ask you to say, oh, take you up on your offer? You said it's like offering to, like, Keri, you can come stay in my house whenever you're in, wait, where do you live, Mark? Oklahoma. Whenever you're in Oklahoma, and then I arrive and say, hey, I'm in Oklahoma. And you're like, oh, I didn't actually mean it.
Yeah. Well, but notice that they closed Ellis Island.
What do you mean?
It's not open for business. You know what I mean? What? What my point is that the immigration problems in the South, but they don't allow people just to cross the border and come across Ellis Island, in New York, where the old immigration, because that's where the first immigration crisis started, was in Ellis Island, when you have back in the 30s but during World War II and people coming out from there earlier in the century. But they don't allow people to just mass cross that border. They don't even allow people to mass cross the Canadian border, right? So my point is, when I say they closed Ellis Island, is that they're very upset. Even though Biden is doing this under the dead of night, that just shows you they have two rule books, right? Yes, they secure their borders. They secure the borders that are close to them and what they have to deal with, right? But they're completely, just like you said, shoveling it off on everyone else. But the people have to understand the point of that is to be able to call everyone south of the Mason-Dixon line a racist.
Yes.
And actually pit state against state in a very old, familiar way, right? And this is why I don't like people talking about the national divorce thing. Because first of all, the only thing in the entire world that is keeping a global cabal of whatever you want to say, but a global system from taking over the world as we know it, okay, the freedom of liberty and individuals, is the United States of America, right? And I can't stand it when people come out there and say, well, we need a national divorce. They teach you in marriage counseling that the most surefire way to end up in a divorce is to start talking about divorce. I can't, and these little points that they put, these little even hypocrisies, because people get mad about the hypocrisy because they can see, but the echo chambers keep us from keep the left often from seeing the hypocrisy. Just like you hadn't seen the article from the New York Post, right? Yeah. And you're based, you read the New York Post, right? So, but think about people who look at the New York Post as, the National Enquirer, which there are many, many who do, right? And it's just causing this, what Jason often talks about is this inability to see the other person's side because we're not getting all the information, right? And then these people are just stuck in the middle and they're used as fodder. And people should be outraged about it, but
yeah. Well, I don't know. We could have a whole nother show about this because I don't know if I would call it national divorce, but we may as well. I don't necessarily oppose some states leaving the union. But let's have another show about that.
Yeah, please have me on for that because I have actually been studying this.
Have you? Okay. What do you want to say?
I want to know how it's possible not to have some sort of national divorce and still maintain a DOJ, an NSA, a CIA, a FBI, an IRS. How do we, without without dissolving the state?
Right. Well, I'll say this. There's a case.
I'm feeling very healthy, and my brakes work, by the way.
Yeah. Me too.
So that Little Mermaid stuff is wild.
Yeah,
right?
but I'll say this, and we don't have to talk about it long. There's a case study for what a national divorce will do to your populace and to your people. Look at the Balkanization of Yugoslavia and that area and Bosnia and all of that. That is what, I mean, Balkanization is what we'd be talking about. We'd be talking about turning the United States into Europe and then pitting us against each other over time. And then you're going to have infighting between states, right? And what has kept that, I think, when you're talking about what Jason always talks about, which is humanity, our common humanity is what built the United States of America and what kept it united, right? And we also have to understand that we can't conflate the leaders of states with the populace of states, because there's a lot of misinformation about actually how many people in California believe that way, or in New York believe these certain things, because we view them all as just Los Angeles or as just New York City, and we take that as the whole thing. And that, I honestly think, and if you want to get me banned, if that's part of the reason why they demonize the whole election issue narrative. I don't want to say the word because I don't want to get, but the whole
show.
The big show, right, is because when they came out and said, we fortified the election, and then they threw out all this Kraken stuff and the stuff with Sidney Powell. That was just a distraction for the fortification that happened, right? Where that they actually came out and admitted, but they pejorativized or demonized that whole narrative, because I believe that that's what they've been doing in California for the past 30 years. So I don't think that the elections in California actually represent the populace of California.
I had that on the other day. Yeah.
So you'd be undertaking a national divorce on false grounds, on fruit of the poisonous tree.
So I can't find the part in this book. I highlighted it, but speaking up in political ponerology, as an aside, he was saying, and he wrote this in between the 1960s through the 80s. And one of the things he was talking about, it was sort of it might even have been in an author's note or something, but I highlighted it because he was saying that the United States is too large geographically. He was saying it's a giant, and there's this problem of places that are too large where they don't represent, the leaders necessarily do not represent the interests of most of the people, because it's too large of a terrain and too many different cultures. And I'm not saying, I'm just putting it out there that this book even touched on it. And he said, if it were up to him, what he thinks would help is if the U.S. divided into like 4 different territories. And look at your face. You're like, no. Okay.
I understand what he's saying. But first of all, the world has gotten smaller, not larger. Because when we're talking about relationships, the world equals our communication. Right. So I can reach you right now. You're in Texas. You're in Texas. If I were in North Korea, if I were actually there, we could still talk right now, or South Korea, not North Korea, because they don't let them have the internet. But you know what I mean? It's if you Alaric is a Dr. Alaric, I can't think of his last name, but we could do podcasts with him. He's in South Korea, right? You know what I mean? The world is smaller, not larger. But what I think he may be hitting on is that there are forces that are trying to divide us. Wokeism is that thing, and is a part of that thing. And then the race issue in general is that thing. But it's narrative doesn't equal reality. That's what I'm trying to get at with this, is that I think most people in the United States still have the common goals. They're trying to erode that. And that's Jason's whole premise with his whole goal, which is why I think it's hard for him to get traction, especially from the mainstream areas, is because if they accept his premise, it defeats the political goal, right? Which they have stated.
I could dissolve that shit within a couple of years. Sorry,
yes.
Can we swear on this? I've been swearing.
Yeah, you can swear.
Okay. Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, we are at war. And when I say we, the individuals, like all of us on this screen, everybody watching, everybody listening, all the immigrants that have been on planes, that have been on caravans, that have been victims of war, from drones being dropped, people impacted by the wars in Syria, we're all in the same boat right now. And we are in America, we're in this false divide where we think everything is this 50-50 Republican and Democrat thing. And we're just going to keep kind of tossing the ball back and forth and wake up and it's 1998 and everything's peachy again. But we're being colonized through the culture.
yes.
And if it doesn't stop, it's just going to happen. And right now, one of the things I've been thinking about, I don't mean to take it this way, is the non-woke movement, the people that are openly advocating for the classical liberal Enlightenment era, the ones that have, noticed the line that's been drawn at 86% of us and 14% of us, whether we want to agree with it or not, that line has been drawn in the sand by the tyrannical Great Resetters and Fourth Industrial Revolutioners, and then those that respect and honor human sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the Great Reset is it's not. You look at the Wikipedia page and it says a 2020 post-COVID economic recovery plan by Prince Charles and Klaus Schwab in the World Economic Forum, where the World Economic Forum was founded in January 24th of 1971.
Yeah. Well, and lots of different things happened at that point. But
less than 7 months. So August the 15th of 1971, we went off the gold standard.
Yep.
Wow.
And then what happened in 72? We opened up China. And right?
Kissinger was the Secretary of State, and he was also the primary mentor for Klaus Schwab.
And Nixon.
Nixon was a mentor as well.
Well, no, I'm saying that Kissinger was a mentor or a partner with Nixon at that point.
Yeah,
yes.
He was the Secretary of State, so
he was Secretary of State,
highly involved. So this thing that we're dealing with now has been in the works for a while. Schwab first wrote about stakeholder capitalism in 1971, and then less than 3 months after we were told 2 weeks to slow the spread, this book comes out, COVID-19 and the Great Reset.
It was already written. They just waited for the right.
Well, just like how to be an anti-racist was.
And
you know what I mean? It was ready to go.
If you are the woke activists, and the people that are just spend their time arguing and doing nothing, they're all part of that 14% that are working towards this Great Reset.
Right. They're in agreement. Yeah.
Even if they don't realize it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, can I bring this? Oh, I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can I bring this? Let me just play Jordan Peterson for a second. A really less intelligent Jordan Peterson. But the Tower of Babel as an allegory. That's what we're living. Yes. But the God is not the God of the Bible. The God is the God of the Great Reset. And the tower itself is individual rights and liberty. And America is wrapped up in the walls of that tower. Right. And so America, over the course of the last 2 centuries, has built up that tower to the sky, right? To the point where you can get up there and actually see over it into the mist of the gods and find out they're not actually gods. They're just corrupt people and corrupt interests, right? And so what do? What do? They send out, they make everybody speak a different language. Right. And how do you make people speak a different language? You hack the mind, you manipulate them, you use the media to draw dividing lines between people.
You
right.
Give them different algorithms.
Yes, yes. You put them in different echo chambers. You put them
Echo
in different
chambers
places.
online.
That's what I say. That social media restrictions are the most pernicious form of segregation. Because and people do it to themselves now on Facebook, for example. So, I'm going to make my group private, and I'm going to let these people in it. And then, because if they do, these people will attack me, and then I'll get this, and then I'll get that. And it's like, the only thing you have to fear is fear itself, because I have somebody who's been gone after on a mass scale in some very serious ways. Guess what? Come after me, bro. But I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to let whatever I may have done wrong in the past, whatever cancel culture or culture, whatever. What I'm doing here is trying to bridge a gap by giving you information, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm not going to segregate myself. My group is public. And if you want to come after me on that group, come after me. That's fine. But I'm going to try to talk to you. And so it's this segregation, these differing language that are being deposited by these elites, by this 14% or the 1% of that 14% that actually are controlling things at different points. And it's working right now. And so the national divorce, that narrative is the goal, because they cannot take over the world economic apparatus with an actual free United States of America. Because once you and it's the last thing I'll say about it, because I have been studying this a lot. The reason why Lincoln, we got to remember that the Civil War started because Lincoln said, I will not see the Union dissolved, because that sets a precedent that will have ramifications throughout history. Because if this fails, this is what he said, if this experiment fails, the last hope for individual liberty for mankind fails. And so we have to remember that when we're talking about national divorce, because the precedent is still there.
Do you not think though that the experiment could survive, but in a new geographical formation?
No, because you set a precedent. It's just like I was talking about this with Courage is a Habit on my show the other day, or on a show the other day. How did the woke infiltrate? It was a little by slowly and then all at once. It's hey, will you just, I think we should have this GSA group in the schools, because we want to, represent the people of that are of this sexual orientation. Okay. Let's have, a separate group for a black club, right? But that doesn't allow white people, but white people can't have that, right? Let's accept that dichotomy, because it makes sense in an equitable fashion, right? Because white people have all of this, right? It's little by slowly, and they weaponize your empathy, right? But progressivism progresses. It will not stop. So once you accept the premise, you've accepted the underlying argument to say that this has to continue down another road, and then what you will end up having is these disparate groups, which are now divided into separate states and actual nationalities. So they're doing this in Oklahoma right now. They did it in Oklahoma, where the Supreme Court declared all of the tribal states literally and completely law and all sovereign, which means that you cannot take taxes from them at all, that it's completely, that the state government can't go and, if there's a murder or anything like that, go and touch them at all. That actually they operate where the surveillance apparatuses on the casinos in the tribal institutes can spy on Oklahoma citizens, and you have no recourse for it. And it's caused this divide that you cannot break through, because there's a law protecting it, and it's getting worse. If we do that amongst our states, we have nothing uniting us under a common flag. We're going to end up like Yugoslavia. We're going to end up like Bosnia, where we end up in some kind of war, an actual war.
Can I show you?
Okay. I have a middle ground solution.
Okay.
The Free Republic of Texas with an alligator moat all the way around it.
Look,
as the only exception to that would be the divorce and the agreed upon terms. And Texas
is the only state that can actually legally secede, if you didn't know that.
And we have our own grid. I just want to, there's a lot of debate in the chat, which is great. I love that about the deprogrammed audiences. If people disagree, but they usually do so in a civil way. I'm just going to show a couple of the things from the chat. I think my mods might be in disagreement. I can't tell. Pirate Tomsky says, interesting. Some people would argue that Lincoln became tyrannical to do that. And along those same lines, before any of us address that, I just want to show Native Liberty is here. He says Lincoln is a horrible example to use. He was a dictator who trampled civil rights, suspended habeas corpus, and a host of other unconstitutional measures. Lincoln's actions set up the justification for Sherman to go after Native Americans with ruthlessness. On the other hand, you've got my other mod, Two Sisters and Some Yarn, Amy. She's very much against national divorce. She says, taking spoiled food and splitting it in two doesn't make one half not spoiled. It just makes two messes now. Clean the kitchen and make pure food instead.
So I have a question. How do, if the global interests have roots in both political parties and in the cabinet, in the legislative branch, what do we do? Because that's the case. I mean, both political parties have been controlled forever.
Do you want
I mean, at least the past 30 years. You know, how do
we have to stop. First of all, I think this is actually happening, and I think Trump was the actual example of that, which is why they must destroy him. Do you think of what you think about him as a person? He uncovered something, right? And he was the prime example of that. The majority, at least at that election, and a large portion, is that people are understanding that they've got to stop choosing from, two menus and instead choose a la carte. Right? Is that the people you choose on a political basis need to be chosen independent of R or D. You know what I mean? They need to be chosen. And this is why I think that they've gone after the media so much, because what I'm finding out on the ground, and this might be something we talk about in terms of my own home case, because it's something I recently uncovered, was that we have no local media to speak of. What we have, the local media is actually more captured than the national media. Because they don't challenge any of the local politics, right? And we have to remember that we're a republic, okay? We're a republic that is built off of local governance, right? And what makes us a federalist society, or federalism, right, is that you can have California do California's thing, okay? You do what you do, you vote in, you go over there, but we can still call you, if you're attacked, we're going to come defend you because you're still part of the United States of America, right? And the same vice versa. But that's why you can move to Texas, still be a part of the United States, if you didn't like what was going on in California, right? That's what has made this whole experiment work, other than the Civil War. Now, that's the point of federalism. So we have to basically pick a la carte, let people choose, but and try our best to break down the two-party system and break down that narrative in the local media first, where I think it's actually most achievable, because it's kind of started in the national media, but then they can shift that because they're two big narratives, right? It's harder to do in the local area, because if you have people like me, which is what I'm really trying to do now, is reach out to the people in my community and say, guys, look, this is how the 6 o'clock news in Norman, Oklahoma deceived you. Go and check what I've done. Okay. And you can check, and I give as many things as I can. This is how they've deceived you. And look how it goes all the way up. Right. If people on their home bases can start to realize that at the beginning, then they can start picking their leaders a la carte. You know what I mean? Because then they'll get the truth about what's going on, instead of what narrative is being deposited, or despotism from the top down, right? And if I can, just I want to make one point about the Lincoln comment.
Okay.
And I take the point that Lincoln did bad things, but Lincoln gave the power back. That's the difference here. It's like Washington was the commander in chief. Let's use him as an example. They were all fallible men. They were all did bad things. Lincoln took power in a point where there was a threat to the Union, but he gave that power back when he could have kept it, right? And at least on the majority. When you're talking about habeas corpus, you're talking about those other things. And many people would say that part of the reason he was killed was because he was willing to do that to such an extent that the South could not abide it, or not even the radical Republicans could not abide it, because he was saying, with malice towards none and charity for all, we will accept our brothers back, that even though they fought with us, they're going to have their rights back. They're going to have, and he wasn't perfect. We're talking 1865, right? There was still racist viewpoints against African Americans, against Native Americans that needed to be ironed out over time. But he gave the power back to the people in order to be able to fix it in the future under the laws, under the protections of individual liberty that were granted to us by the Constitution. So that's all I would say about that.
If Native Liberty is still here, I'll just mention this now, so I don't forget. And I would love to do a whole episode on Lincoln at some point. There are a couple books I want to read that my husband has read,
Team of Rivals.
and I don't know enough about it. And one is like an autobiography that I'm blanking on the names, but he read like two different biographies. Sorry, they're both biographies from two different points of view. And I want to do that. And then after that, Native Liberty, if you want to do a show with me, get in touch. And whoever, get in touch.
I would love to do that, because
yes,
read Team of Rivals, because that's actually this issue writ small. Because what he did is he took all the people that were in disparate, that believed that he should not be where he is, and he used their common humanity, like Jason says, to manage them and save the Union. They were all against each other. They were all his rivals, and that's what he did with the United States as well. It was that was his.
It's amazing what happens whenever we stop fighting and we can find ourselves in each other.
That's what you're all about, Jason. You always give me positive feelings. Anyway,
we need to. I'm trying to get. How do we get that out in the ether?
It's hard because even as
how do we get people to stop fighting, come together, be like, oh shit, we've got to save this. We have this generation, the people that are alive in this moment, we have a great responsibility to the future and a great opportunity to thwart one of the most tyrannical things that can ever happen to us. And the thing is, it won't necessarily be us that suffer the brunt of it. Right. It's going to be the next generation, and then each generation after that, worse, and worse.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, let me ask you on a personal level, because I think all of it comes down to individuals. Just with this book, which is about sociopaths on a grand scale, but it's about individuals and individual personality disorders as well. I think it's the same thing with how do you do that in yourself, first of all? Because I'll tell you, I'm a person who probably leans more often than not towards the let's come together. And I try and remember, gosh, this week I had a good kind of relaxing unplug in Germany. And I was thinking a lot about how I want to make sure when I talk about my old ideology that I never forget that a big part of my audience, or I hope a big part of my audience, is people who are still in the woke left. And I don't talk to them enough. I sometimes forget, and I'm talking to people who have already left the left, like me. And so I want to be able to reach out to those people and say, here's what we agree. But here's the question, Jason. How do you maintain that in yourself? Because I have days like yesterday where I am completely in warpath mode. And I'm and it's not every day. I go back and forth. How do you do that? How do you stay out of warpath mode, or should you stay out of warpath mode?
Warpath mode looks differently, but one way for my own self is I live in, there's a lot of nature. So I'm in that element of the day-to-day isn't city hustle and bustle. So that level has been removed. And I think at this point, I'm also considering that, maybe we're not going to unite and stop this thing in the culture, and it's just going to happen. So I'm like, maybe somebody will find one of my conversations or a string full of my conversations years down the road and be like, man, that dude, he was onto something. Why didn't... So there may be a resurgence of people that want to live their very short time on this planet in peace with each other and figuring out how to increase their potential and the potential of others and really live a fruitful, honest life without the tribalism and the cynicism and the nihilism and all of the toxicity that we're dumping
going
on the culture now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wish that there would be this collective reflection, like, do we really want to do this? And then drop the bad ideas and habits, open up our arms and do something differently. I mean, we don't have to continue this path we're on. That's the thing about self-awareness, is you can choose to do something differently. And there's a whole lot of us that need to choose to do something differently in this moment in time.
Yeah.
I do want to, we have about half an hour left, and I do want to get to a topic in Oklahoma, if you guys wouldn't mind. It's an education topic, and it's in your home state. I know you've covered a lot of it, Mark. Before I do, haha, there's the meme that you sent me. The scene in Martha's Vineyard right now. Hilarious.
Isn't it beautiful?
He's got the no trespassing. He comes back out with the no trespassing. I just love it. I love so much. This is the Austin people. It's like in all the wealthy neighborhoods in Austin, they all have that "in this house we believe" sign. Of just gross.
Yeah, until they're outside your door. But,
yeah, exactly. Oh man, that's so funny. Okay, so I'm switching. Oh, is that people like the meme? Wow. I'm switching topics. So I'm going to pull up this article, but while I'm doing so, why don't you tell me a little bit about this next topic, Mark?
Okay. There was a teacher, her name is Summer Boismier. She, on the first day of school, and it's a little complicated other than the fact that it was all, and I proved it to be a manufactured outrage incident. On the first day of school, she claimed, and many Democrats here were claiming, that books were being banned, which was not the case. And then she conflated that with the anti-CRT bill, which was not even involved in this situation. She sent a QR, the book Genderqueer and Flamer, those books. The Democratic state superintendent had ordered those removed because she called them pornography. Now she did it to one school district, and the rest of the school districts were like, wait a minute, we need to make sure these aren't in our libraries, and we need to make sure they're not in the teachers' classroom libraries. So what they did is, a week or so before school, all the districts said, hey, go through all of your books, make sure you don't have these books, these sexually explicit books. Well, this teacher then takes to Twitter, covers them in big red paper and calls them banned books, and then shares a QR code with her students to a Brooklyn library where genderqueer was the first thing on the front page of the thing, right? And immediately a news anchor in Oklahoma City, Wendy Suarez, came out and said, she did a tweet at night, and this is all the night before our state superintendent election. Okay, so at 9:17, she sends it out, this tweet that says a teacher was removed from school for sharing banned books by the CRT. So the CRT bill, which was a complete fabrication, because what the teacher did was resigned, and it had nothing to do with any of this, but made it, and this went into a national story. And the anchor did not correct it until the day after the election, right? And she got 10,000 retweets. And so it ended up in Vice, this narrative in Vice, and all of these other places across the country, that Oklahoma is banning books.
Yes.
Which is a complete fabrication. So I went in and started, it was kind of fortuitous. James Lindsay said my name on Tim Pool's podcast. it got me a bump in traffic on my channel. And then this story happens and I started covering it. And that's what I had kind of a big jump in my channel because of it. And I got play and they could not handle that. And so I exposed it as this anchor then came out and accused the other people of saying the teacher had been fired when she's the one who set the narrative. I mean, it was a complete fabrication. And so the point of it is that this activist teacher manufactured a narrative. She quit and did this on the first day of school in order to become a national activist. And I kind of caught them doing it. So
I've got a couple of articles pulled up here. I'm just wondering which one we should. I was looking for the one with her image because I think that's the funniest. I can't find it.
Oh, yes.
And this came, you're right, it did become a national story because this came across my desk. I forget, somebody sent it to me or something, and it was like, I can't believe that this teacher, here we go. Here's the one I want to share. I can't believe that this teacher is becoming a martyr. Like they're really, the national media is trying to turn her into a martyr. Like the narrative that I think a lot of people on the left are hearing is, oh, I know how it came across my desk. One of my old friends who's very woke shared it and was like, go and support this teacher. And, this is a friend who lives in New York. And so it's like a national thing. And I clicked on it. I was like curious what she was tweeting about and looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, like this teacher is becoming a martyr. Here it is. Mm-hmm. The left, what the story they're hearing is that she got basically fired or resigned because she didn't want the state to ban books. That's the narrative. Right. The headline on Yahoo says, this Oklahoma teacher helped students get banned books. An official wants her license revoked. Okay, right. So if you scroll down, you can see a picture of her here.
Yes.
This just makes me laugh because this is what you knew she was going to, first of all, look at her t-shirt. It says educating is activism.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't look happy.
She's everything you thought she could be and more. Yeah, no, she's not. And
looks miserable.
And she lied. She blatantly lied, and the media helped her lie. The local media helped her lie. And when I exposed it, they came after me hard for it. I mean, I got doxxed by Antifa. I had accounts broken into. I now have my YouTube channel is suspended. I think that's all part of it. But people did not like this. That I exposed what this grift was because she lied. She put out that she was fired. She wasn't. Then she accused people on the right who took up the narrative that was given to them, that was deposited to them. Ryan Walters, who I've interviewed twice on my podcast, is running for state superintendent. He parroted it in the letter that he wrote to ask the school board to remove her certification for sharing pornography in the classroom. But he said that she was fired. I was like, Ryan, no. And he stepped right into it. And they were like, oh, we're going to sue him for slander. When it was the media that had parroted this all out to make her famous. And it was incorrect. She resigned, and she had the school said she was never removed from the classroom. She was never suspended. She was never anything for any of this stuff. But she claimed that she was fired. It was all completely manufactured.
Yeah. We live in the Truman Show for real.
Yes, it's a complete fake. And
she also posted on Twitter. So after this farce took off in the media, which, by the way, I'll say, one of the books that she was making sure that she gave kids access to, but with this, what do you call it? QR code is that what it's called?
QR code. Mm-hmm.
I'm such a boomer. When I go to restaurants now, like after COVID, they try to make you scan that code.
Yeah.
And I'm always like,
how do you do this?
Excuse me, I'll have a paper
trying to push
menu,
the button.
Please.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just disagree on principle. I'm like, what if you don't have a phone? Give me a paper menu. Anyway, one of the books she was trying to make sure kids had access to with this QR code was the book Genderqueer that you mentioned. That book is straight up pornography. I encourage you. I am not afraid for anyone to check and make sure my characterization of it is correct. Please go and look up the book. Look at the images. Look at the sexual. They're depicting kids having sex, go and look at it. It's porn. And so she's defending giving pornography to kids. So first of all, that's beyond the pale. And then secondly, after this became a huge national story and she gained this martyrdom, this status, and had friends like my friends in New York tweeting about her, I went to her Twitter profile and she's tweeting stuff that falls in line with this shirt of hers that says educating is activism.
Yep.
I don't have the full quote in front of me, but she essentially said that the purpose of the classroom is to turn children into political activists. She said education is necessarily political. I mean, she's out there saying it. She's saying out loud what we've been saying about social justice educators for a while, which is that they don't think the purpose of the classroom is to instruct in, math and science and literature and English. They think the purpose of the classroom is to politically indoctrinate. And she said so.
Yes, but here's what she did also in the local news. In her news interview, she went out and said that it was the people who passed the anti-CRT bill law are trying to politicize the classroom. So again, she says one thing on Twitter, right? That the education is activism and politics. It is a political act. She said it's an inherently political act. Educating is inherent, right? And then she goes on TV and says, it's them that are trying to do this by this law that's trying to limit. All the law says is you can't have abusive power dynamics in the classroom. If you read the law, it reads like a civil rights bill. You know what I mean? That's all. Jason could have written it. I mean, it's that kind of law. And it says that you can't discriminate against kids or make them feel bad because their ancestors did something wrong to someone else's ancestors based on the color of their skin. And she went out and said, no, it's the Republicans and the CRT bill, which had nothing to do with the situation, right? That has made me feel like I had to do this and I'm standing up for it. And they're politicizing the classroom because they won't let me do what I believe is right in the classroom.
Yeah.
That's it. It's insanity.
I want to know if these people realize they're stooges and they're just essentially being used to help erode society so the ruling class doesn't have to do it with weapons and whatnot.
I think she knows exactly what she's doing.
She's
doing it on purpose. Yes. Oh, you're talking about those who were following. Yeah.
Yeah. The ones who are following, like my friend who retweeted this and very sincerely is like, go and help this teacher, guys. She's being persecuted for helping kids get access to banned books. People like my friend are dupes. They are what Brett Weinstein called useful tools. When he described the two different types of people in social justice, I was a useful tool. Useful tools are sincere. They are completely naive. And in a lot of cases, I view them as being brainwashed. This teacher, though, you're right. This teacher is what Brett Weinstein called a bad actor. Like completely knows what she's doing. Here's that tweet. I did find it so we can get the actual language of what she said. She said, pretty much everything. I believe the classroom is an inherently political space. As such, I believe teaching is also a radical political act. Here's the opposition, folks. It's time to pick a side. And I kind of read this whole thread and I'm like, well, okay, you want me to pick a side? Well, I'm going to be on the side that does not defend giving pornography to kids in the government schools.
But
so does this mean that I can get a classroom and start really with younger kids about, all right, here's how we dismantle the state, y'all.
That's what she says.
That's what she's doing. Yes. But I want to point out that the rest of her thread was
with liberty.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a point. Yes. Yeah. But I want to highlight what she did in that thread later on, because what she did is that she posted a bunch of screenshots of people that were supposedly harassing her and calling her names, but she blacks out the names so you can't look up those people. I'm like, why are you trying to protect the people who are harassing you?
Well, I do that. I do that.
Oh, you do? Yeah. Really? See, because my thing is, if you harass me, you better be prepared to get retweeted and have your name everywhere, because I'm going to say, okay, not because I want to dox you, but one, I don't believe that those people are real. Knowing how she's lied about the other things, right? I don't believe that those people are real, because all of the remember, I live in Norman, Oklahoma. I could drive to her house right now if I wanted to. All the people I know that would be most passionate about this would never say or do those things to her. And that's just not Oklahomans in general. They're pretty docile people. You know what I mean? And it's all manufactured to make her look like a victim so she can be risen up. And I posted, go to my YouTube, because I do this in 4 episodes. I follow this as it goes and I expose it. But I post a national interview she did on a big podcast. And she pretty much says, hey guys, I don't want to go back in the classroom. I want to be a national activist. That's why I did this. She says it. You know what I mean? And it's blatant. So
Yeah. Well, just a couple of things from the chat. Somebody says, inappropriate book at schools, but calling it porn is the weak argument. No, I'm not using that word lightly. There's sexually explicit books in the schools that I would not call porn. I know some schools, like in Texas, Grapevine Colleyville, for example, has said that the Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, because of its depictions of sex, it should, and with minors, that it should not be available to certain grades, which I'm fine with. I would not call that book porn, though. That's not what that book is, even though it does have graphic depictions of sex and abuse. But genderqueer is different. It is all visual images. It is a illustrated book depicting in illustrated form blowjobs. It is graphic. You know that expression, what was it back during the famous, was it in the Supreme Court or was it in Canada?
Right. You know it when you see it.
You know it when you see it. Go look at it. I'm not using the word porn lightly, just because.
But it was also available to 6th graders.
It was available to 6th graders. Yes. Yes.
Come on now.
Anyway, that's my opinion. I don't think I'm being histrionic or hyperbolic and using that word, and I don't use it for every book with depictions of sex. Like I would not use it for The Bluest Eye, but genderqueer, that's porn.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that keeps us from engaging with each other until we find out what that truth is right. There's like, I get accused of being a Republican, which I never even talk about politics, but because I am against this neo-Marxist collectivist ideology that is illiberal in its philosophical foundings, that I'm against that, then I'm all of a sudden, I'm on the right. Yes. So it keeps people, so we're just in this constant eye roll, walk away from each other, assume and judge, rather than figuring out. I really think we got to stay engaged until we figure out if we're part of that 86% that wants to advance the notion of sovereignty to the next generation, or if we're just going to kick back and enjoy the Great Reset and the beautiful economy that we've been given part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. We should do that whole episode about the Great Reset and whether or not national divorce is going to happen, or we should do it. I had people, I'll tell you, I had someone in Germany ask me, I was at one of my husband's shows and I was sitting at a table and we started talking, introduced ourselves. This really funny guy. Afterwards, he was talking to me about the world and stuff. And he said, do you think this German said, do you think America is going to have a civil war? I'm like, oh, wow. Like, so that's something that the Germans are thinking about
now.
Yeah. And I said, I think I said something along the lines of, we're already in a sort of war, but if we had one with weapons, like a physical one, not just a war of culture and information and stuff. If we had a physical one, I don't know how that would go. But he asked me, he was like, but come on, America. He was kind of in your camp, Mark. He was like, if the United States can't come together, then, we're all doomed. He was like, you guys are going to work it out though. And I took more of I was like, no, I don't think we are. I was pessimistic.
But what he was saying is my point.
Yeah.
Is if the shining city on a hill gets put out, the world will lose hope that it can be done. And then when you talk about dark age, it may be a digital dark age, but it'll be a dark age. And if we start fighting each other, and this is why when Jason and I had our little spat on Twitter, it's like, I really kind of came to his ground on it because of my belief in this. That first of all, we ironed out what the inconsistencies and what I thought it was as opposed to what it is, first of all. And I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong, right? So, but it's also, if we don't find that commonality, if we can't assert that as primacy, then at least in enough group of people to turn that tide back, the light will go out, and it could be a millennium before it comes back.
If
you know
it
what
does,
I mean? Right.
Once you start talking about embedding technology into the biological body, I don't know if that's something that humanity will ever step away from.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what the fourth industrial revolution and all of this is.
And it was that video that got me. It was that video that is still up on YouTube for the guy who posted it. It was that 2-minute clip of that video that got me suspended from YouTube. That's what they said, at least, even though the video it came from is still up. Whatever.
This is look, there's someone still disagreeing with me in chat. That's okay. You could disagree with me. I did find a link. I'm going to put it up. I'll just warn you if you're at work or if you don't want to see this. What I'm about to show you some images from the book Genderqueer, which I do characterize as porn. Mm-hmm. It is blurred out, which is funny. In this news article, they have to.
If you showed on here, you get taken. You'd be demonetized. Right.
And it's also, it's interesting that they have to blur it out to do a news article about it. Yet it's not blurred out for the children who are reading it.
That's right.
The headline here is Parents Horrified by Controversial Book Genderqueer, It's Child Pornography. This is from the Independent Chronicle. I believe this one's in Texas. And so here we go. I'm about to show you. You can look away if you don't want to see. Here's an example of a page from one of the books, which IWV has even blurred out. If you check out the book from the library, there's no censoring. You see it all. And so you guys can see here, there's 2 different images that have been blurred out of kids performing sexual acts, blowjobs
on kids.
I'm sorry. I view this is what I would call porn. Maybe you disagree, but either way, maybe
whatever it is, it has no business in schools.
Yes. Thank you.
Right.
And whatever that is, it has no business in schools.
Whatever we call it, we can disagree on what to call it, but can we at least agree that this should not be in public school libraries?
If you want to read that book to your kid after you bring them home from the family drag show, read it to your kid after you come home from their family drag show. But that does not belong in school.
The characters in it are children.
Yes.
That's the other part of this. They're using cartoons to get around, just like, honestly, Big Mouth does on Netflix. If you've not heard about that, that is one of the most horrendous. It's replete with child pornography. It is, and when I say child, I mean pubescent, 10, 11, 12 years old, depictions of nudity in children on that show. And that's what we've accepted one little premise a while ago. That's why certain books that are sexually explicit. Okay, fine. Read that when you're 18 years old, but don't allow them in school. I don't care if there's value to them at night. Find that value when you're 18. Find that value when you're on your own. You know what I mean? And don't ban any of those books then. Don't even ban Genderqueer then. Right? That's fine. Read that when you want to. But we've accepted this little bitty premise, and it just slowly seeps in. Little by slowly, progressivism progresses. And that's where we're at. So
yes. Surly Unicorn in chat says, this isn't exactly Frog and Toad. Do you guys remember Frog and Toad?
I do. They were not giving each other blowjobs.
You guys, bring back Frog and Toad. Make Frog and Toad great again. That's what I would like to see. Remember these guys?
Oh,
they were my favorites. Yeah. No blowjobs, though.
No.
Even the
toe jobs
made me. Oh. Talk about leapfrog.
Yeah. Oh.
I can't think fast enough to come up with another pun.
Totally.
Totally. So stupid.
Yep.
What
Let's
were
hop
you
to
going to
it.
say, Jason?
I have no
Well.
idea.
Yeah. It's been an
Guys,
interesting discussion.
it has been. We talked about. I didn't think we'd get into the national forest discussion, but that's great. I do want to talk about that more. Maybe when we do this Lincoln episode, also I'll let you both know if either of you are interested in coming back for that one. Maybe you're not, but
I'm interested.
But if we, yeah, I'll let you know. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in getting momentum, getting organized and united momentum from the non-woke, let's save America, let's save sovereignty, let's stop throwing darts at each other, and let's figure out what are some common practices that we need to do, what are some common things that we need to do. How do we get organized so we're just not 100, 500 people that have podcasts and talk about things, and like how do we take this to the next level? Because honestly, years ago I thought we would be more advanced
by now,
but there's still I mean the original like IDW thinkers and all of those people, they still aren't talking about how the human species is being colonized in this very moment. And what do we do? So how do we get that raised up out there?
I think I think we're moving there. Just it's been a slow evolution, and it's been because now I'm at the point where, well, there's two things happening in my mind lately. One, I was just reminded that there's still people who have not woken up and that they're waking up. I was just reminded of that this past week. I'm constantly reminded of that. And I know some people don't want to talk to those people anymore. That's not their audience, but I still want to talk to those people because I still think there's people that we can wake up. And even if that means I have to repeat myself a lot, I want to reach those people. But then on the other hand, I'm divided because I also want to talk about like, well, those of us who are familiar, and we've been talking about this for a few years now, what's wrong with woke ideology that's permeating everything in our culture. And we already know about all that. And we're kind of like, well, what's the next step? What do we do? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm lately personally moving, and I know many in my audience won't agree with this, some will, but I mean, I'm moving more towards like, I think Christianity is the antidote to wokeness. And I'm having more conversations about faith. I'm able to do that on this channel now, and not just about Christianity, but different types of faith. So anyway, I don't know. I think we're moving there slowly though. And I think we're starting to see people coming up with alternative properties and platforms, and we're creating very slowly this alternative economy. We've got people like Ripa, doing his own comic book, like creating a whole separate comic book industry, essentially, not just his own new comic book, but a whole way of putting out comics that are not part of the woke agenda. And we've got people like Epic Verse, like Josiah Rises and Epic Mike, who are working on the same thing for entertainment options that are not woke, like for TV and film. And so I don't know. I think it's happening. I think it's evolving slowly though.
We need to get a thread going between all of those people and groups.
Can I speak to the practical aspect? We need money.
Yeah.
That's what the disparate effects, and I'm just going to be real about that, is that Jason hasn't taken off with what he's talking about, because what he talks about is a direct attack on the new lines of both economies, and whether, because there's money being made here, and if we want that kind of message to take off, we need to find a benefactor, or we need to find a way to make our own money. And that means, I think we could do, if a lot of us would band together and form a real corporation and start working on it and doing those kinds of things, we could do that. But coming from somebody who's raised money, you do nothing without money, because it's the only way you get your voice in the conversation. And it's,
I will take this moment. to
Glenn Beck
say
did it with the Blaze. That's all I'm saying.
we are completely listener supported here at Deprogrammed. I forgot to make that announcement at the beginning. If you would like to support the channel and what I do, you can go to Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals and support. And these guys also, you probably have donation links if people want to support your work, right?
There is a donation button on Empowered Pathways, and we accept all crypto. We've got crypto wallets.
Except crypto.
Hey, let me tell you how far behind I am on this. I'm just now setting that up because I just now realized all of that. It's like, wait a minute, I was just doing this out of altruism and the goodness of my heart. And it's like, no, I need money. So you can
listener support is I like listener support because it's like if people really value what you're doing, they can choose to contribute.
Yes.
I contribute to different I used to contribute to Peterson, even, who is not really exactly hurting for funds, but it's because I just really love what he does, and so it's like people show that with dollars. But what I hear you saying is that listener support is not enough. We need to come up with some infrastructure, some way of like
right. Yes. Yeah. I'm talking about going and getting the funds.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, raising a
Daily Wire is doing that, kind of like they've got a whole corporation that's putting out content, and they're
yes, but they make money off of exactly what Jason's program would stop. And that's the fact. Outrage economy. It's an outrage economy. And I love the Daily Wire. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's an outrage economy, and they haven't identified the problem.
Well, they have identified the problem. No. They have. They've identified symptoms of the problem. Okay.
Symptoms.
Yeah,
see, everybody's identifying the obvious symptoms, but nobody's addressing the task at hand.
Right. Because again, when you have a free market economy, right, you go based off incentives. And I'm saying they're doing good work, and we would be in the tall grass without them. I'll say that. Okay. And we very much would be. And I think hopefully as they get more of a foothold in the culture, I think they'll start to steer things in the right direction. And Ben Shapiro is really smart. These people are really smart. I can see them going about that way. But what Jason does, for example, is on the ground level. And so what we need a bottom up, top down kind of situation. Mm-hmm. And so, but you still have to have funds from the bottom up. You know what I mean? As opposed to the top down. So I would just say, Jason, if you want to form a major corporation and let's go, I'm with you, brother. I'll help you raise money. But
I've got a 501c3. Empowered Pathways is a nonprofit.
Yes, but they don't. But if you fix the problem, they can't make money off of it. And also, if you fix the problem, hold on. And I say they. Let me caveat this: if you fix the problem, the Great Reset won't happen. So there's also that aspect of it. So if you want to take it just towards the woke or crypto woke apparatus, you solving the problem solves it ends them.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The crypto woke organizations, they're just trying to make money comfortably and not resist and expose what is happening. Whereas I want to expose it and help heal us and fix us from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're not going to make any money with healing.
I know. I think the world,
exactly. That's the truth, though.
But
that's
seriously, things are so jacked up that it's going to take so much longer to fix it. I won't run out of work, and there will be even enough suffering and turmoil with people the next generation. I would love if there were 100 of me that we could do trainings after trainings after trainings and put all of this knowledge and information out so we could resist the ideology, maintain our sovereignty, and be cool with each other. That's the thing.
Be cool.
Just be cool with each other and get along and be compassionate, loving, caring human beings, and stop arguing about the Little Mermaid and whatever else.
If you guys missed it, we did a Wednesday night episode about the Little Mermaid. You can find it right here on the program. But we were talking about, more about how they use the outrage that you're talking about, how they create outrage for the purpose of marketing.
Yes.
Like race baiting or rage baiting, someone called it marketing.
Her hair's not even bright red, orange.
Yeah.
It's not the Arial red.
People.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
But notice.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you for the super chat, Frecky Long Time 49. He says, "Great convo. I adore your hat, sir. Thank you for
And that name.
including it in your avatar." Brentley from Dangerous Rhetoric is here. Hello, Brentley. He says, "I don't think there will be a kinetic conflict." I don't know. I have no idea if there will be. Pirate Queen asks, "Are you going to add memberships to the channel?" Yes. I am sorry. I thought I already added them, and then I realized they didn't go live for some reason. So again, I'm learning things. I'm adding YouTube memberships, guys. And Night Train says, "If Keri's the only person I allow notifications for, but I still don't get alerted." That happens a lot, but I guess go ahead and click the notification bell if you want to get notifications. It works maybe 50% of the time. And make sure you're subscribed if you thought you were subscribed to the channel, because they routinely unsubscribe people. We've heard from many people.
I've been one of those people.
Yeah, you've been unsubscribed from my channel. I get it. Two Sisters and Some Yarn says, "What is this nonsense of people not agreeing but having a discussion calmly?" And last one, Pirate Tomsky says, "Redefine the like button from unclicked to clicked." Thank you, Pirate, my mod, for keeping on top of that. Hit the like button if you like the show. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what I want to do? I just want to record a little clip with all the things you're supposed to do every video, because I have a friend who's very successful on YouTube who's like, "You don't do the things enough. You need to do it at the beginning and the end." Well, I just want to record it once and then just play it, because I get tired.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, I hate it.
Please hit the notification bell.
Hit it right now, please.
Anyway, you guys, thanks for hanging out. I know we didn't solve all the problems in this conversation, but I just like having talks with interesting people.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always good to see y'all and talk with y'all. I think one thing that's important and good is to have repeated conversations with people that you've had conversations before, so we can keep uncovering things, because I have conversations because hopefully there's people out there listening that can use those conversations to unlock some wheels and to even share with others.
Right.
Yes.
Like, hey.
So share this video.
Yes, share this
video. That's right.
Go.
But that's true. That's the weapon we do have, is that we can pass this stuff along and hopefully they get something out of it. So.
Yeah.
Because the narrative, the conversation that everybody is like, that is not even real anymore.
It's not real.
Yeah.
This is like for real conversations, guys. Like, yeah. It's not real. It's funny too when you talk to people who are in that. I mean, I view it as like, gosh, who was it that made the Plato's Cave analogy in the Mike Cernovich documentary? Hoaxed. There was a part at the end where he talks about Plato's Cave. And I kind of view it that way of like, sometimes I talk to people and I can tell, oh, you're in the cave, and every frame of reference is going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to talk with someone who's in the cave, but at the same time, I think it's possible.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
It's necessary. People are so I can tell who's most attached to either political side and the media, is those are the people that are the most hateful and the most fearful. And that's both ends. It's all along that political spectrum. But those that are most attached to a political party and in tune to the media are the most hateful and fearful people that I interact with.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's by accident.
Yeah.
Night Train says, "Now it's time to wait for FNT." Woohoo! It is. Happy Friday, guys. I have an announcement. I'll be Sunday night, deprogram people. I'm going to be on the main of I'm going to be on Geeks and Gamers for Mario Kart Sundays. And I'm just having fun. I'm so excited they invited me, because right? Like I'm like, oh my God. And so what I have to do is practice tonight after work a bunch of Mario Kart because I haven't played since 1999 when it was on the real Nintendo. And apparently they play like 200 cc's, which I had to look up what that means. It's like super fast speed. And I really don't want, I know I'm going to be the comic relief, but I don't want to be so slow that they have to wait for me to finish each course.
So, you will be. Just know that. Just accept it now. And
right.
do you know
right. I really am like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? I just told Epic Mike I wanted to hang out with them, and then it's like, okay, this is happening now. I have to actually figure out how to play this game. Yes. Anyway, that's my last announcement. Thank you, Algeron, for the super chat. He says, thanks for what you do, Keri, and you're wrong about the reasons genderqueer should not be in school. Okay. That's okay if you think I'm wrong. You guys remind people where to find you, and if they want to support you, where can they do that?
Jason.
Mark.
I said it first.
Okay. You can find me at Twitter, Jason the THEE human. If Meg can be a stallion, I can be a human. And if you would like to check out empoweredpathways.org, that's the nonprofit where I'm at. That there is a donate button there. I can do some trainings at your workplace, and then also check out Free Black Thought.
Yes.
Woohoo.
Excellent.
And I do a podcast now, Reformation Radio, wherever you find podcasts. The last one we did was entitled "The Ruling Class Does Not Want You to Hear This." It's a conversation with me, Eric, and Xander Kegg, talking about how everything's a sack of lies.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, follow all that. You can find me on the Unwokable on YouTube with no E in the middle. So it's UNWOKABLE. And on Twitter at ACS Against CRT. I need to change that handle, but and here's my link tree. You can do that. I also have a Substack, the Unwokable Substack. You can find me there. And Facebook, you can find me there, and Apple, Spotify, all those kinds of things for the podcast. So, and I would appreciate any support or just the like, subscribe, hit the bell. That'd be great. Thank you so much, Keri, for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for hanging out. I loved it, and we made it through even with all of our slow brains. So
I'm reminded of Mitch Hedberg. He said, "You can find me at the store."
You did? There are no stores anymore. It's all online.
Yeah.
Find me at the store.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right.
Take it easy, y'all.